What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your NFL draft grades. The 2023 NFL draft is now over. It's time for me to evaluate each team in the NFL, all 32 from the worst to the best, giving you my draft grades from an A+ all the way to a C-. So I'm going to make some people angry in this video, and I really do not care. I've already made people angry. And to those people that would praise me if I gave their team an A+, shout out to you, but you're mad at me because I don't like your draft that much. But that's why you subscribe. That's why you Gronk spike the like button, because I'm going to be opinionated, and I'm going to give you my thoughts, my opinion. I don't care if everybody hates me. Okay, I'm not going to give everyone a B just to make everybody happy. I'm going to tell you how I feel. So that's what we're going to do in this video. I'm also experimenting with a couple things here. Some different camera looks, so bear with me. But it's going to be some fun. And let me know where you would grade your team in the comment section below. I went live for this very purpose, so if you have any questions about your team, when they come up, I'm going to go in alphabetical order. When they come up, you can ask me those questions. That's why I'm live. I'm here to face the music, okay? I'm here to face the music. All right, let's waste no more time. Gronk, spike the like button. Let's go. Also, I'm excited, man. The offseason basically just began. I know the draft's over, but man, we have so much offseason content coming. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to put my phone up. So what you're seeing now is my phone camera. I think it's a little bit better, closer. You can see a little bit better. And I'm going to be looking at my laptop here to make sure I get all the draft picks and everything so I don't forget anybody. So here we have it, the full screen. We've got the A, which is going to be best drafts out there. We've got the B+, the A-, which is the drafts that I like a lot, but I don't like quite as much as the A's. I'm not going to give any A+ because I think that's straight up ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to give anybody an A+. Are you kidding me? Nobody gets an A+. I'm sorry. And then a B is like solid draft. I don't hate it. I don't love it. A B-, a C+ is still okay. Like, I think they address some needs, but I don't exactly love their draft. And then we've got a C, which is like, I'm not a fan of your draft. I didn't want to give a C- either, anything below a C-, because I just don't feel like that's warranted. Like, I don't think any team in the NFL had a C- F draft, especially this year. I think this year, every team at least did fine. I don't think any team was absolutely terrible. If I didn't like your draft, I'm going to let you know, but you're still going to be in a C category, okay? So does that make sense? All right, now that we have that handled, we're going alphabetical order. Let's go. Let's begin with the Arizona Cardinals, which I felt like the Arizona Cardinals had one of the best drafts. This one's easy for me. I thought they had one of the best drafts in terms of prospects I like, future acquisition of picks and capital, and then also addressing needs. So I felt like they did a lot of things proper for me. I'm going to put them in the A, and it's mostly built off the fact that they realized, there's teams in this draft that did not realize this, the Houston Texans. We're going to get to that in a second. But Arizona, I felt they recognized that the draft next year is probably going to be better than the draft this year. Okay, so let's get another first round pick that might be in the top 5 or at least the top 10 in the Houston Texans, in my opinion. And let's just kind of have this roster building ability in the future. So that's what I loved about it, not even including the picks. And then we get to the picks. Paris Johnson Jr. Now, I've heard everything I listen to and hear is like the NFL loved Paris Johnson Jr. Like the Raiders had him as a top 6 player, top 5 player. They were going to pick him at number 7 if he was there. So he was a top 5, top 6, top 7 player in this draft class without a doubt. The Cardinals are still able to get him after adding a first round pick and multiple draft picks for the future and get a tackle that can protect Kyler Murray And Kyler Murray wanted this guy. So everything, makes sense there. BJ Ojulari is a big-time pass rusher that has first-round talent. I think more upside than his brother. He's going to be their most talented pass rusher right away once he begins in the NFL. Then we've got Garrett Williams. Garrett Williams is a corner out of Syracuse. That is a big-time need for them in the third round. I think he would have went higher if not for the injury history. Michael Wilson, kind of the same thing. Another third-round pick out of Stanford, wide receiver, a guy that I really liked. Rare size, quickness capabilities, really good in his releases and route running. I felt really good about that. So overall, their first 4 picks I really, really, really liked. And I felt they got proper value out of each one. And they addressed needs at every position, especially considering, okay, if D-Hop does get traded, Michael Wilson could actually end up starting for them right away this year. So I think all of those picks are really, really good. I think Garrett Williams is going to start. BJ Ojulari is going to start. Paris Johnson Jr. is going to start and be a cornerstone for their franchise. And they get future draft picks with the capabilities of maybe moving up and getting one of those premier quarterbacks next year, or getting like a Marvin Harrison Jr. next year as well. So I thought that was a masterclass by the first draft of their young general manager. After that, we've got the Atlanta Falcons. And guys, let me know your grades for each team as we go along. Shout out to everybody in the chat. So next we have the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan Robinson was their first pick. You can feel differently about this, and I think a lot of people are going to feel differently about this. I think some people are really going to like this move and this pick because he's impactful right away. I think some people are going to say that Bijan Robinson's a running back, and you never should take a running back in the top 10 no matter how good that player is. So understand your perspective both ways. Now, the way I look at it is Atlanta is a team that really loves to run the football. Their identity is to run the football, and they are going to have a superstar running back in an incredible offensive running the ball scheme with Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith comes from Tennessee with Derrick Henry. It makes proper sense because they actually value running backs. Then on top of that, they go with Matthew Bergeron, who was a tackle turned guard, who's a premier guard, I think, like in terms of run blocking. I think he's going to have a very good career in the NFL as a starter. Zach Harrison is a guy with some upside, kind of played out of position at Ohio State, but some upside as a pass rusher. They needed a pass rusher. Then they take a corner, which is another position they could have went in the first round, Clark Phillips. That's just good, proper needs with the third and fourth round pick. Could they have gotten, a corner or a pass rusher in the first and second round instead of going running back, offensive line when those weren't their biggest needs? Yes, that's maybe why I don't give them an A, but I think they tried to make a strength a bigger strength, which is an underrated thing to do in the draft. So I'm going to give the Falcons like a B+, A-, because I think they gave their team impactful players right away in a draft that there might not be that many of those players, and they also address some of their needs. So I think Atlanta's a B+, A- for me, despite looking like maybe a controversial pick in the first round. After that, you've got the Baltimore Ravens, which is a team that I really like their draft in terms of their top picks. I feel like they didn't have as many picks as they usually do. But Zay Flowers, I think, if you have Zay Flowers in your draft and you're picking in the 20s, I was going to like your draft, especially a team like Baltimore, who I feel like has always underwhelmed in terms of addressing the wide receiver position. Now they have an overwhelming amount of talent, right? With Odell Beckham and Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar and Devin Duvernay and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, the guys that they already had before Zay Flowers, I was happy with what they were going to go into the season with. Now you add Zay Flowers to that, and you have potentially a very dangerous wide receiving core, a guy that can win at all levels of the field, short, intermediate, deep, a guy that can unlock this. And I think he'll be the best receiver on their team right away. I really do think he's that good. And I think that's going to help Lamar Jackson and this new scheme in Baltimore. I think Baltimore, I'm going to make a video about them. I think they're extremely dangerous in the AFC. Trenton Simpson, linebacker, a lot of people had as their number one or top 3 linebacker in this class. He slips to the third round. A lot of people like this pick for the value. I'm intrigued by it. I think in the new system of Baltimore where they like to play more zone coverage, this is an athlete that can move in space and cover. He's very different from Patrick Queen, who they didn't pick up their fifth-year option there. So Simpson may be the answer to replacing Queen there. So I do like the pick, and I do feel it's good for the system they're running now as opposed to the old system in Don Martindale's system. So I think he's a good future pick, but doesn't really help them right away. And then they go Robinson, outside linebacker, Blue Kelly, a great name, all-name team later on at cornerback, which they can always use more corners. Baltimore loves their corners. I'm intrigued to see what Baltimore does in free agency the rest of the way. Marcus Peters and Justin Houston still free agents. But overall for their draft, I'm going to give them a B+. Like, I'm kind of in between. I think I'm going to give them a B+, closer to a B+ than an A-, just because I just love the Zay Flowers pick that much, and I just love giving Lamar weapons after signing him long-term. So I'm going all in with that pick. I'm going to say it's a B+. Don't worry, guys. Not all of these grades will be super positive. Buffalo Bills are next. We've got the first-round pick, Dalton Kincaid, which I thought was a solid pick. I like Dalton Kincaid. I thought he was better than the 26th overall player in this class, which is where they got him. I think they traded up to get him. But Dalton Kincaid can open up the middle of the field for Josh Allen. My only kind of question about that is you already have Dawson Knox. I think you signed Dawson Knox. How are they going to play at the same time? Because both of these tight ends are not actually like great blockers, right? They're not guys that are going to go out there and steamroll opponents. Like, is that the right choice? Two guys that have a similar skill set. I'm kind of intrigued to see how that works out. Osiris Torrance, a guard, I think will start right away for them. I think he improves their running game and their physicality and all that stuff. So I think that's a good pick. Dorian Williams is a prototypical linebacker, tackle machine. He might be able to start right away. So you get two starters, at least three starters maybe, on a team that is a contender, like right now, needs to win right now. So Dorian Williams, I like that pick. And the rest of the draft's just kind of for depth. But I think the Buffalo Bills, I give them like a B, maybe B+. Like it's somewhere in there. I just question the Kincaid fit a little bit with what they already have. But I mean, I like the Torrance pick in the second round. It's really close. Like either way, I could understand it. I'm gonna put them at a B for now. I might switch that at the end, but that's kind of how I feel. Then after that, we've got the Carolina Panthers, a team that I actually, they had the first overall pick, but I don't really love what they did in this draft, because they had to trade a ton of assets to get to number one. I already discussed this in my losers video. It's funny though, because I made a losers video, right? But not all of my losers had like F grades, C- grades, right? So Carolina was one of those. Like, I totally understand why they went up to number one to get Bryce Young, but that wouldn't have been my move. And at the end of the day, this is my opinion, right? So it's whatever you think, but Bryce Young, I think, will be a good quarterback. I question whether he'll be elite or great. And that is why I don't know if I'd be willing to go up and get Bryce Young with all the assets they had to give up. A first-round pick this year, right? 9th overall pick to move up to number one. Then a first-round pick next year, 2 seconds, DJ Moore, who's Panthers fans all of a sudden saying he's not that good. Like, get the hell out of here, okay? He's at least a top 20 receiver. That's being conservative. And then and you need a receiver. So you go out and you replace DJ Moore with a second round pick, Jonathan Mingo, who I don't think is that good, honestly. Like, that's my opinion. I think some people will love him. There's a lot of people that do love Jonathan Mingo. So I'm kind of in maybe the minority. But you picked him relatively high, I think, even for the people that liked him. Second round, 8th overall in the second round. I struggle to see how he separates at the NFL level. He wasn't very productive in college. Doesn't have great quickness or route running capabilities. Like, I understand what Carolina did with this draft. I just don't love it. That's kind of where I'm at. So I think Carolina for me is like the perfect explanation of a C+. Like, I understand it. I just don't love it personally. So that's why Carolina's a C+. DJ Johnson as well. I don't know what happened there. Nice logo though. Absolutely phenomenal. DJ Johnson, edge rusher, definitely needed that pick. That was a good need pick for them. After that, you got the Chicago Bears. Solo Man is in the chat. What's up, man? Okay, Chicago is next. I like mostly what they did, especially when it comes to acquiring draft picks. They moved back from number 1 to number 9, and then they moved back from number 9 to number 10. Darnell Wright, I think, was the best tackle in the draft. He was at least in that conversation along with Paris Johnson Jr. I think more power teams and guys that like the anchor and pass blockers, he was like the guy that you could say, hey, he shut down Anderson. He went up against Georgia. He did this. He did that. He played in the toughest conference. He dominated, right? So Darnell Wright, I think, was a great pick and maybe a slept-on selection at number 10, and they still were able to move back and select him. Dexter and Stevenson and Pickens are second and third round selections. I wasn't in love with the defensive tackle picks. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't see a ton of upside in those guys. I don't see them as premier pass rushing talents, which is what you would like to see at D tackle. Tyreek Stevenson, I feel, is a little bit boom or bust. He has the makings of being very good, but I'm unsure about the scheme fit with him, but I see some of the upside. I think the Roschon Johnson pick was very nice in the 4th round to add a power back to what you already have. He's kind of like similar to Foreman, who you signed. And then Tyler Scott, I like a lot in the 4th round, got a lot of speed, downfield capabilities. And then you go linebacker, corner, D-tackle, corner, once again to end the draft. So I think Chicago, some Bears fans are very happy with this draft. Some Bears fans are kind of underwhelmed by this draft. I think it's a B for me overall. Maybe like a C+. So, but I think what they did that I like the most is getting picks for the future, personally. Then we've got the Cincinnati Bengals are next. Cincinnati, I am going to say, is an A-. The only thing I really argue with Cincinnati is that maybe they could have been more aggressive. Maybe this is the year that you go up and get a premier talent because you're just like 1 or 2 players away from being a Super Bowl team. I could argue that in terms of the team building philosophy of this draft. I'd also argue that maybe Myles Murphy wasn't my favorite choice at that pick, but I can understand it. He definitely is a 1st round player. I maybe just like Nolan Smith a little bit more. So like that's the difference between A and A- for me. But overall, Myles Murphy's got a ton of upside. He's got pretty good length to be able to beat tackles on the edge. He's kind of got to work to add to his pass rushing capabilities. But what I really love about their draft is DJ Turner, Jordan Battle, Charlie Jones, Chase Brown. The 2nd round to the 5th round are my favorite picks by Cincinnati. This might have been the best 2nd to 5th round run that I saw in the draft from a contender standpoint. Cincinnati's a contender. So you got to understand from that perspective, and that's the way I'm looking at this. Every grade in my draft grades has to do with perspective and has to do with where is your team at and what are they looking for, right? So Cincinnati, they're trying to win the Super Bowl. DJ Turner, if you think about it, helps them win the Super Bowl because DJ Turner ran a 4.27. He was my 4th favorite corner in the draft. He's great in man-to-man coverage, great stop-start capabilities, great makeup speed. What does DJ Turner allow you to do? He allows you to match up with Tyreek Hill when you play Miami, right? He allows you to match up with Stephon Diggs on the outside and play man-to-man coverage and not have to worry about getting beat down the field, right? He allows you to match up with certain matchups within the AFC, okay? So that's what I love about that pick. Then Jordan Battle is a player that you want to pick if you're a contender because Jordan Battle played at Alabama. He played a ton of snaps. Safety is a position you need young players to be able to support in depth roles. Jordan Battle can play right now. And he's a third-round pick. Charlie Jones can play right now, right? Charlie Jones, I love Charlie Jones. I like, he was my 5th or 6th favorite receiver. The only reason I think he went underdrafted is he doesn't have a fantastic physical profile, but he did run a 4.4 for a white dude. That's pretty impressive. And you combine that with good routes, high production at Purdue, where he only really ever had 1 year of opportunity to have high production. And then he can be your number 4 receiver and maybe your future 3. And he has return value. I think he was the returner of the year 2 years ago in college football. Chase Brown could be your number 2 running back right away, right? So I really like what the Bengals did in their draft. I think the only difference between A and A- is like maybe they could have moved up, maybe they could have swung for the fences, or maybe I would have just preferred maybe slightly different pick in the first. But I could be wrong about Myles Murphy as well. I think they did a good job. Then you've got the Cleveland Browns, who are next up. Guys, if you haven't already Gronk spike the like button, please Gronk spike the like button. Also subscribe and share this video with your friends, guys. This is probably going to be the final draft video, like recap, reaction video I do on the channel. And then we're moving on to the next, okay? We're doing topic videos. We're doing rankings of NFL players. We're doing schedule content. So make sure to share this with your friends. Gronk spike the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We're building the BLV community. Cedric Tillman was their first pick. I didn't love that pick for where they're at because Cedric Tillman, I think, is a talented receiver. I think a lot of people said he's a second-round receiver. I don't necessarily agree with that fact. I had Cedric Tillman closer to my 10th best receiver than my 5th best receiver. Some people disagreed with me, so that's fine. But Cleveland, receiver wasn't their biggest need, right? They have Amari Cooper. They have DPJ, who I like a lot. Then they have Elijah Moore, who I also think has potential. So at best, he's the 4th receiver right now. Maybe this is a pick for the future. That's fine. But the Cleveland Browns want to win right now. They paid like out of the yin-yang for Deshaun Watson. So they need to win right now. And what I thought they needed was defensive line or defense in general. So they go with Cedric Tillman. Just don't love the need there, okay? Then they go with the defensive tackle out of Baylor. I think that was a good pick. They need big men in the middle of their defense to help them stop the run. That's one of their biggest legit flaws. I like that pick. Then they go with an offensive tackle, DeJuan Jones, who is one of my at least five favorite tackles in the draft. Like, I really, really, really like DeJuan Jones. I wanted New England to pick him. I don't understand why he fell other than maybe medicals. Because his tape is up there. He's a great pass blocker. Dorian Thompson Robinson, very good value pick. He was like the 6th best quarterback in my opinion in the class, and he didn't go 6th. And he could be a very good backup. Maybe have trade value in the future. So I think for what Cleveland had at their disposal, I think they had a good draft. I'd say it's not going to be overall incredible, like impactful. So you got to kind of like look at the picks they had, the efficiency of their picks. I think for what they had, this is like an A- draft for me. B+ A- draft. Then you've got the Dallas Cowboys, who I give the Dallas Cowboys the benefit of the doubt when it comes to drafting. They're a very good drafting football organization. Okay, so what you look at what they did, and I think they addressed some needs that they definitely needed. Mazi Smith, a lot of people looked at him and said, why couldn't they go with a different player there? Maybe you could have went with somebody else. But Mazi Smith is a huge need for them. A big nose tackle run stopper. They need to get more physical up front. They need to be better against the run. And he also adds value with his quick hands at the line of scrimmage to get to the quarterback. Dan Quinn loved this guy. Micah Parsons was just foaming at the mouth for this guy to be on his football team. So Mazi Smith, I think, is an underrated pick in my opinion. I think they needed a big D tackle. I mean, think about who they're going to be playing in the NFC in the playoffs. They've got to beat the Niners, and they've got to beat the Eagles. I don't care about anybody else, right? They've got to beat those two teams, and they can make the Super Bowl. So that is a great pick. Then they've got Luke Schoonmaker out of Michigan. Not my favorite tight end in this class, but he is pro-ready in terms of his blocking. I think he gives them inline value, and there's not a lot of tight ends. Like, you look at Dalton Kincaid, he is a first-round talent because of his receiving skill set, but you question his ability to block, right? You question that. With Luke Schoonmaker, he's more of that Dalton Schultz, right? He's not super athletic, but he's a talented receiver with some upside. But more what you're looking for is he's a good blocker and he's got some value as a receiver. And then Overshown, I like more than other people. Some people said this is a reach. I mean, again, I've said this many times and it's getting redundant, but seeing Texas defense play live, especially against a team like Alabama, they're playing Jahmyr Gibbs, Detroit Lions savior, next Barry Sanders, all that stuff. This guy's a stud. Like, he can run very quick. He's explosive. He plays with a reckless abandon. He's got great length at linebacker. This guy can play. So I really like that pick, and I think Dan Quinn will utilize him well. The rest of the draft, you get a pass rusher. You get a corner, you get an O-tackle. Deuce Vaughn's a great story. I love Deuce Vaughn. Love the talent, love the player. I think he'll be a good third down back in the NFL. So I like that pick as well. But Dallas, I think I'm going to give them honestly, like going into this, I was going to give them a B. But honestly, I'm higher on this draft than other people. I'm going to give them a B plus, A minus, because I think they identified what they need to do to get to the Super Bowl. What they need to do to make this team better at the end of the day. And that is big people. And I think they did that. So I think Dallas did a good job. Then Denver. Denver's a little risky of a draft. They didn't have a lot of picks. They moved up to get Marvin Mims, which, like, I get it. Marvin Mims, though, to me, I don't know. Like, you have to, unless you're trading Courtland Sutton, is he going to play? And you need to win right now if you're Denver. Is Marvin Mims going to play this year? I know he's a second-round pick, and you traded up to get him. Is he going to play? Jerry Jeudy, right? Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler. Maybe he slots in as that fourth receiver. Maybe third if you trade somebody. But I don't know how that first pick that you made is super impactful right away. Maybe down the road. Drew Sanders, I think he'll be impactful, but he's a niche player. A lot of people know him, recognize him. He's a former Alabama player, converted to Arkansas. Then he moved to inside linebacker, and he was great at blitzing. But he doesn't really do anything else that well. Riley Moss, props for taking a white corner who can run. Cool. Great, just great for the brand. But I mean, bro, I don't know. So, I think the Broncos are like a C plus for me, just because their first pick, they traded up, and I need more information. Some Broncos fans will be higher on this draft than I was, depending on what they think of Drew Sanders. And I think that's fair. Okay. Then you've got the Detroit Lions. And this one is going to be very controversial because Lions fans rather love to love me or love to hate me. So it is what it is. But Detroit, let's go through it, okay? Let's go through each pick. This is definitely a controversial draft to say the least. So first pick of the draft is Jahmyr Gibbs, 12th overall. They began the draft with the 6th overall selection in this draft. They've moved back to number 12 to pick Jahmyr Gibbs. I brought them up in my losers of the draft. And why were they losers of the draft for me? It had nothing to do with two things. Nothing to do with the fact that they didn't pick good players, because yes, they picked good players. It's hard to not pick good players when you have 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. I mean, it's just difficult not to pick good players. I don't know what to tell you. And then it's like, it's not even that they reached on the players, because I don't really care that much about that. It's more to do with team building philosophy, and it's also to do a little bit with need, okay? So Jahmyr Gibbs is a running back. They entered the draft with David Montgomery and DeAndre Swift. And now Lions fans are switching up and saying that we don't like DeAndre Swift, he gets hurt, all that stuff. Well, you weren't talking that way before also. And then also, as a number 2 running back, DeAndre Swift's not that bad, okay? And the Eagles, one of the smartest franchises in football, thought that he was fine. And he's probably going to be their number 1 running back. So, I don't know. Jahmyr Gibbs, love the player. Love the talent. Certainly first round. I think he'll be legit. That's not the problem. The problem is picking a running back when you guys needed defense. Like, it's going to be funny because Lions fans are going to be mad at me, all this stuff. And then we're going to come back in January, and I'm going to tell them that you lost because your defense gave up 34 points to Kyle Shanahan. That's what's going to happen. I'm just letting you know, okay? So when you didn't pick Tyree Wilson at number 6, or you didn't pick Christian Gonzalez, or you didn't pick Jalen Carter, that's why you're going to lose in the playoffs. Not because you picked a running back. Jack Campbell. Okay, I'm not that mad about Jack Campbell because they needed defense. I just brought that up. He will start right away, and he was the best linebacker in the draft in my opinion, and he was a first-round player in my opinion. I can't be that mad. Would it have been nicer if they would have picked him at 26? Sure. But maybe they couldn't trade back. I don't know. Just pick your guy. That's fine. Sam Laporta? I'm not as high on Sam Laporta as I am on Michael Mayer. So I slightly disagree with that because, and the reason is Michael Mayer is a better blocker. And I think your tight end position needs more out of that position. I think Michael Mayer is a better blocker than Sam Laporta. And that's where I slightly disagree because I think that he gives more value as an inline tight end than Laporta does. Brian Branch, like the pick. No problems there. Hendon Hooker, I like the value. I don't know if the pick will work out, but I feel like quarterback that could have gone in the first round if he's not hurt. Good pick. Could be the future. Could not be the future, but it doesn't really matter. 3rd round pick. Broderick Martin, fine pick. You needed a D tackle. I would have wished you would have maybe gotten a more impact player at that position. But like, I'm not going to be too mad about that later on. So again, the Lions had players that are going to help them. It's hard not to. They had 2 first and 2 second round picks. I mean, duh. Okay. But I feel like this is a C+ draft because when you look at another team that was in the exact same situation, and we'll get to them later on, the Seattle Seahawks went from here to there, in my opinion. Detroit went from here to here. Like, they didn't do that much in my mind to make them that much better. And it's because that linebacker and running back in 2023 do not make you that much better at winning football games. Is it fun to cheer for? Yes. Okay? That's all I gotta say. I hope you guys understand. Next, we got the Green Bay Packers. The Packers had a very, very tough draft for me to grade because I do agree mostly with what they did, but I also slightly disagree. Like, I feel like, would Lucas Van Ness at 23 or 13, sorry, would Lucas Van Ness would have been my pick? Probably not. Probably not. I probably wouldn't have picked Lucas Van Ness at number 13. Did I feel like they could have used one of these receivers in the first round? Yes. But also if Lucas Musgrave is the tight end version, because he's a freak, skier, lacrosse player, football player, every player. He ran fast. If he's the tight end version of Christian Watson, that's a great pick. But he also is highly risky, in my opinion. Then you got Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has some skill. I don't see a ton of upside there, but I think he could be a solid slot receiver. Tucker Kraft, I like the pick. I'm not too mad about it. Like, I think this is a B draft for me. They go with the quarterback, interesting, out of Penn State there in the 5th. Another receiver. They get a kicker, DN, corner, running back, and safety. So, like, this is the definition of, like, a B. Like, it didn't blow me away. It wasn't, I understand it. It made sense. It was logical. I just maybe, like, would have preferred a sexier pick in the first round. Sometimes you need sexy picks. You just traded away Aaron freaking Rodgers. Okay? You needed a sexy pick. I'm sorry. But I like the draft overall. I'm not going to be too mad about it. And then you got the Houston Texans. Oh my goodness. I feel like I've been kind of rising in the Texans fandom out here. Like, a lot of Texans fans are liking my content, and then I come and I smack them right in the face with a loser in the draft. So let me explain. So I listened to Michael Lombardi today, and that's my guy. I mean, I love Michael Lombardi. Is a legend, Patriot GOAT, former GM. And he was defending his guy, Nick Caserio, for the trade. And he was basically saying that they traded for the 3rd overall pick for CJ Stroud. And I've gotta be mad about that explanation. Just because, like, yeah, I understand you're the general manager and you've got to listen to the owner at the end of the day. And if the owner wants a quarterback and he wants CJ Stroud, you've got to pick CJ Stroud at the end of the day. I get it. But you don't have to also pick the guy that you're obsessed with at number 2. You know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you don't, like, they traded for number 3, and Lombardi's logic is that they wanted to satisfy what they wanted, which was Will Anderson, and they also wanted to satisfy the quarterback need of the owner. And that's essentially what Lombardi was inferring. My opinion is, just take CJ friggin' Stroud and then pick somebody else at number 12. That's what I think, okay? If I was the Texans, I would have picked CJ Stroud with no problems, owner or not. I don't understand what they're thinking in terms of why they don't like CJ Stroud. I guess we'll find out. I don't get it. But I would have taken CJ Stroud at number 2, and then I would have said, I don't care to get Will Anderson. I'm not obsessed. That's the problem. You can't fall in love with a prospect. You can't fall in love with a player during this process. You can't say, I gotta do no matter what. Because you end up giving up Marvin Harrison Jr. next year. You end up giving up an amazing receiver next year just to get Will friggin' Anderson, who I don't even think's the best edge rusher in the class. I'm sorry. Maybe that's a hot take. So, I mean, if you think Will Anderson's the next Nick Bosa, I guess you look at this as a great draft. I don't think he's the next Nick Bosa. This is the BLV. This is not the SLV. Okay? Juice Scruggs at center, I think's fine. You needed a center. I'm not going to be mad at that. Nathaniel Dell, I like Tank Dell. I think he's a sick, slick route runner. I think he could be a very good slot. He is a little small, but 3rd round, okay? Then you get an edge rusher, a linebacker. I think the Alabama kid, a linebacker, wasn't a bad pick. Xavier Hutchinson's interesting too. So overall, I think this was a very, very, very tough draft to evaluate. Because if CJ Stroud is great, at the end of the day, does this matter? Not really, okay? But I hate that they had to give up their 1st round pick next year. I hate it so much. So I'm going to give them I'm going to give them a C+ because I think they came away with good players and they also did fairly well after the 1st round. I hate what they did there. I just hate it. And then we've got the Colts. I don't even know who's going to enter my C column, to be honest with you. And Rick Badboy says Will Anderson definitely was worth it. I disagree. I disagree. Okay, the Colts. I think the Colts had a good draft. I like Julius Brents a lot. That was my favorite pick. I like Blake Freeland out of BYU. I think he could be a tackle out of a starter tackle out of the 4th round, which is always nice to get. That could be an extreme value right there. Anthony Richardson, I am personally not a huge fan. I see massive upside. I would have okay, here's the thing. I probably would have picked Anthony Richardson if my coaching staff was invested in him and willing to do whatever it took to make him great. I also look at the coaching staff and say this is a perfect fit. The perfect fit for the coaching staff. We're going to get to Mr. Ramey here. Sam Ramey in the chat. 1 second. Okay? Anthony Richardson, I think it's a perfect fit for the Colts. So, I like the pick, but this could easily be a bust. It easily could be a bust. So, the fact that they didn't have to trade up, though, is what makes me say it's a good pick. Because it has so much upside that just one pick alone is worth it. Julius Brents, like the pick. I felt like he could have been a 1st round talent at corner. Josh Downs, I think, is a little overrated, but in the 3rd round, I'm good with it. He's a good slot receiver. I think he'll be your number 3 receiver, right away, and he's ready for the NFL. Otherwise, the Northwestern kid actually was a good value. So I think the Colts had a good draft. I'm going to say the Colts have an A-B+ draft with the upside of this being like an A++ if Anthony Richardson is as good as they think he could be. So I'm going to say it's like A-ish from this draft. Okay, let's get to Sam Raimi. So he says that imagine evaluating a team's 2023 draft based on a 2024 draft pick. Yes. Yes. Because that's what happened. You have to evaluate that. Like, what? You can't just evaluate the fact that you got some good players in 2023 without the fact that you paid for a first-round pick. Texans fans, you're not going to the playoffs this year. You're not going to the playoffs. You are not going to the playoffs. I'm sorry to inform you, okay? You're also probably going to be picking in the top 10. And the top 10 is being conservative. You have the second best win, like odds, the second worst odds to win the Super Bowl in the NFL. The only team that has worse odds is Arizona, which is in fact the team that you traded with, right? So they're going to have 2 picks in the top, I don't know, at least 10. And next year's a better draft. And like just looking at the top picks in next year's draft, and that's also my bias of saying I don't think Will Anderson is that great. I don't think he's Nick Bosa. Some people may think he's Nick Bosa, but again, you're watching the BLV, you're not watching the Caesar LV, okay? So Caesar may think that Will Anderson's the next LT, but I don't think that. So that's my opinion. All right? I don't think he's Nick Bosa. I don't think he's Joey Bosa. All right? I'm just saying. Then we got Jacksonville. Guys, Gronk spike the like button if you haven't already. Jacksonville's up next. This one was like a meh. Like, I put them on as a loser. And again, guys, I want to continue to stress this. My winners and losers are not just based on who'd you pick, are they good, blah, blah, blah. My grades are based on context. I have different expectations for you based on what type of team you are. If you are Jacksonville and you are very close to being a Super Bowl caliber AFC representative, I'm going to have higher expectations on aggressiveness than I will for a team like the Texans. Okay? So, Jacksonville just did nothing for me to move the dial in terms of what they're going to do this year. Anton Harrison is probably a pick for the future. He helps you in the Cam Robinson suspension. Okay, great. He's also kind of a developmental tackle as opposed to like a ready tackle. Brenton Strange is a backup. There's no other way to put it. Tank Bigsby is a backup, and I don't even think he's that good. Then you go, inside linebacker, that's your strongest position on your team in the 4th round. Then you've got defensive end. Okay, that's a good pick. But none of these players in the 5th and 6th and 7th round for Jacksonville is really going to help your team. Your roster is good already. So it comes down to your first 3 rounds. And I just felt like they didn't maximize their picks early in the day. So honestly, I think this is one of the worst drafts, low-key, that nobody is talking about. So I'm going to say this is like a C, honestly. I might be totally wrong about that, but that's just my opinion. And I might have to change this around. But the Kansas City Chiefs are next up. Kansas City Chiefs also had a very meh draft for a team that wants to be a dynasty. For a team that thinks they're the New England Patriots of 2003 and 4, this was a very meh draft. Okay? Felix could be a contributor. Other than that, I don't see anybody in this draft that right away is going to contribute to this team. The safety, I mean, if you really hit a home run in the 4th round, maybe. The tackle in the 3rd round, maybe. But Rashee Rice, again, I've said this many times. I see some flashes with Rashee Rice, but I don't see enough for him to supplant Valdez-Scantling as your best perimeter receiver right away. I don't even know if he has enough to like supplant Justin Watson right away. So to me, I just don't see anything that the Chiefs did that really moves the dial. Okay? C plus in that range. I'm going to say C plus. I'll give the Chiefs the benefit of the doubt. I'm probably going to have to switch this up. Actually, in fact, right now, let's put the, bro. Nah, I'm fine with it right now. Chargers. Quentin Johnston. I almost put the Texans in C just to piss people off. Quentin Johnston in the first round. I didn't really love that pick. As you guys know, I'm not a huge Quentin Johnston fan. I don't think he'll be a bust per se, but I don't think he'll be worth a first round pick at the end of his career. That's my projection. Does he have a lot of upside? Yeah, he does. Physically, he's big, he's fast, all that stuff. I would have preferred Zay Flowers. I like Zay Flowers more. That's my opinion. I think he would have been a better fit for the Chargers. The Chargers love big receivers. They were never going to pick Zay Flowers. I understand that. I did like their second and their third pick. I thought they got good players. I especially like Henley at linebacker. He was my second favorite linebacker in the draft behind Campbell. So I like that pick, especially in the third round. I think they needed a linebacker, so that makes perfect sense. And they got a nice third edge rusher out of USC. They picked another receiver later on out of TCU, both TCU receivers. So, this one's tough. I think it's a pretty average draft, so I'm going to put it at C plus-ish territory. Then we've got the Rams. The Rams, I think, had a really low-key, pretty good draft, honestly, like given what they had. So they had a second, 2/3, and they didn't have a first. They had a bunch of fifths and a bunch of sixths and all that stuff. They just got a bunch of players that can fill into depth roles and maybe even a couple that can start. Steve Avila, I thought was perfect for what they want. He was arguably, out of TCU, arguably the best zone blocking guard in this entire draft, and they got him in the second round. So I love that he's going to start right away. Byron Young, I think, was a solid pick. Good pass rushing upside in the third round out of Tennessee. Kobe Turner was like one of PFF's favorite values in the draft. They got him in the third round at interior. I think the Rams do a very good job in these deep sections of the draft. Stenson Bennett, I thought, was a reach, but he's a backup quarterback. Otherwise, I mean, just filling up the depth chart with offensive tackle, cornerback, defensive end. You can't hate on the positions as well that they attempted to fill, because these are positions that have a lot of value, right? So if you draft a defensive end in the 6th round, I like that more than drafting a linebacker, just because, like, if you hit on an offensive tackle or a defensive end and those guys are good, then you've got those guys at super cheap at super no cost, right? So if you find a diamond in the rough at a premier position in the NFL, it means that much more. So I take into account those things as well. Even if you miss, it's a better miss than missing on a linebacker. Know what I mean? So the Rams, I'm going to put in the I mean, they're between B plus and B. I'm going to put them in the B. Then after that, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders. You guys know the Raiders was one of my favorite drafts. Shout out to Daniel Barry, Sports Highlights in the chat. Shout out to Rick Badboy, Caesar in the chat. Thank you guys for joining. Ware is in the chat. I believe that's how you say his name. What's up, man? Guys, Gronk spiked the like button. Jermari's in the chat. Gronk spiked the like button. Subscribe. A lot more NFL content coming. We got schedule release next week. A lot of cool stuff coming to the BLV, all right? Next up, we've got the Raiders. Love the Raiders draft. Thought they had a great draft. Peter King was actually in their draft room. That was pretty cool to hear, like, the experience of Peter King being in that draft room, what those conversations were like between Ziegler and McDaniels. Even if this was a bust of a draft for them, that's still cool to hear. Tyree Wilson, I think, is a home run pick. I think he's the best pass rusher in this entire draft. Yes, he has some medical concerns, so there's a little risk here, but a lot of upside, like significant upside. This guy has rare talent. The longest arms in the world that I continue to say rival John Jones, and he's got his brother Chandler Jones there to teach him some pass rushing moves. He's also got great flexibility, great bend. I love this upside. If I was the Lions, I would have picked Tyree Wilson. Michael Mayer, second favorite tight end in the class, probably the most well-rounded tight end in the class, can block, can catch, all that stuff. Love that pick specifically for McDaniel's system. And he's going to be, I mean, man, look at the Raiders offense right now. Nobody's talking about this, but you've got a really underrated run game. Best, leading rusher in the league, Josh Jacobs. Good offensive line. Jimmy G, who's going to be better in this offense than Derek Carr because he knows the offense and he can perform in the offense and he can execute the offense. Then you've got Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, Michael Mayer, Austin Hooper. I mean, that's a sick offense. Like, you've got so much versatility there. 3 receiver sets, 2 receiver sets, 2 tight end sets, power running game, play action. I mean, that is an offense for me. Like, that is a good offense. Byron Young, good versatility on the D-line, can play inside, outside, like that pick. They need a defensive lineman all over the formation that can help them. Trey Tucker, not my favorite pick, gonna be honest there, but I did like the Bennett pick. I did really like the Christopher Smith pick at Georgia at safety. He could probably play right away, at least as their third safety, maybe even start as a rookie as a 5th round pick. So the Raiders, I think they got an A for me. They were one of the A drafts in my opinion. Miami only had 4 draft picks, guys. Only 4 draft picks. So there's not a lot to go off of. But Cam Smith could be a really good pick. The interesting thing to me that I didn't touch on in my first evaluation of their draft is that Cam Smith could actually enable Jalen Ramsey to move around and play different positions. So I do like this pick. If Cam Smith ends up being a starting caliber talent, which he very well could be. Some people thought he was a 1st round player. If Cam Smith can be a starting caliber talent and play outside or inside, then Jalen Ramsey has the versatility to play inside or outside, which makes their defense that much better under Vic Fangio. Devin Achane was not my favorite back, but he fits perfectly with what they want to do. Elijah Higgins, I did like his kind of like receiver tight end versatility, but my problem is that you just got rid of Mike Gesicki and couldn't play Mike Gesicki and couldn't find a role for Mike Gesicki. And this is basically Mike Gesicki, right? So I don't really understand that pick, but it was in the 6th round, so it is what it is. I'm going to give the Dolphins, an average grade. They only had 4 picks. I can't really go crazy with that. Minnesota Vikings, this one's tough. Honestly, the Vikings had one of my least favorite drafts. I don't like this draft. I think Jordan Addison will be a good number 2 receiver, but I don't really see anything else in this draft that I really like that much. They only had 6 picks. I would have preferred if the Vikings would have traded back and would have gave themselves more options to pick some players deeper in this draft. I think they need more young talent. They need more youth and they need more positions. I didn't think they came away with enough assets in this draft personally. I like Jordan Addison. He's kind of a down the fairway pick. I think he's a number 2 receiver in the NFL, but he doesn't move the needle for me. Blackman, I think, was a bit of a reach in the 3rd round. And then otherwise, I'm not really going to take a lot. They picked a backup quarterback who's probably never going to play, a running back who's probably never going to play. And then they picked a D tackle and a safety. So honestly, this is one of my least favorite drafts. I think a lot of people is just looking at Addison and being yeah, that's a great pick. But otherwise, I don't see anything they did well. I don't think they maneuvered the board that well. I don't think they did a good job at finding things that could help them. I think the Vikings are a team that needed to get younger, needed to get more depth, and they didn't do that. Next is Christian Gonzalez and the New England Patriots. The Patriots, I think, had a good draft. I don't think it was a great draft. Christian Gonzalez might have been the best pick in the 1st round from a value standpoint, especially when you consider the home that he has now. So he goes to New England and he gets coached by Bill Belichick, who's coached Ty Law, who's coached Stephon Gilmore, who's coached Darrelle Revis, who's coached Aqib Talib, who's coached Asante Samuel. He's developed and made all these guys better, right? In his system. Christian Gonzalez is a freak. Some people would argue he's a top 5 player in this class, at least top 10. Some people thought he was the best corner in the draft. And I at least thought he was 1B to 1A in Devin Witherspoon and had the most potential in the class. So Christian Gonzalez has rare movement skills. He's big, he's tall, he's long, he's fast. He's got everything you want. Ball skills. The only thing Christian Gonzalez does not have is super aggressive nature and a bit of polish because he's 20 years old. But you give him a great coach, specifically at defensive back, and he has Hall of Fame potential. That's how much potential he has. That's his skill set, right? So that's a home run. Keon White, very solid player. I really like, most specifically, 2 things about him. His power and his mentality. The guy looks angry all the time. He looks angry. He looks like he's pissed off every second of every day. And then also, you've got a guy that's a power player, which I think New England does need more than people think. On their D-line, the only thing they were missing was a guy that could kind of like set the edge and then play inside on pass downs. That's Keon White. That's Trey Flowers-esque, right? That's the guy they were missing. Mapu, that was maybe a little bit of a reach, but apparently Belichick loves this guy, and I can see it in his highlights. He plays with like a reckless abandon, great athlete, and we needed this type of player, right? A lot of people said he's a safety, but he's actually a linebacker in the NFL. He has very similar measurables to somebody like Deion Jones, a fast linebacker, a guy that can flow sideline to sideline, play in coverage. He has a reckless abandon against the run. I think that might be a very good value pick because he went to Sacramento State, like a really small school. Then day 3 was like kind of not my favorite. Jake Andrews. I can't be mad at picking a center named Andrews in the 4th round just because we've hit on those before, to be honest with you. So I'm not going to be that bad. Chad Ryland, kicker. Okay, I mean, that maybe a little early, but we needed a kicker. We did. I mean, Nick Folk's like 1,000. I don't think he's coming back. Guards, 2 guards. I would have preferred maybe one to be a tackle, but if one of those guys hits, cool with that. I really like the Booty pick out of LSU. I knew who he was before the draft, clearly, but like, he was one of those guys that I thought was going to go a lot higher. And I think he went in the 6th because of off the field things. He went because of not a great combine. But whenever you can get somebody that was a projected 1st round talent 2 years ago in the 6th round, that's a steal. That's a steal. And that's also a guy that, when you're looking at New England, right? Every fan was mad that they didn't pick a receiver early. If you looked at this draft class and really studied this draft class like I did, there were 2, maybe 3 receivers in this draft class that could make a significant impact from day 1 at wide receiver. And those guys, in my opinion, were Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnson, right? So, Butte is a receiver who was a 6th rounder, who is one of those high upside picks, who is one of the few guys that was picked after the 1st round who might actually, if he gets back to form, impact this team right away, right? That is what I love about the pick. Demario Douglas is also like a low-key nice pick out of Liberty. I like this pick as well because it's a small school, small athlete who's only picked in the 6th round, not because of production, not because of pre-draft process where he runs a good 40, he looks really good in certain camps. He's only a 6th round pick because of the school and because of his size. So I like those type of picks. And then you finish the draft off essentially with special teamers, which I'm perfectly fine with because our special teams sucked last year. So I think New England maybe didn't have a perfect draft, but it was good. Like I would have loved to have that receiver. I would have loved to have a tackle. Otherwise, they got as close as they could. I mean, Christian Gonzalez, you can't pass that up in the first round. You can't pass that up. So I think they got an A- for me. Then after that, we've got the New Orleans Saints. The Saints, I think a lot of people are like, yeah, they did what the Saints do, D tackle, DN. I don't think they came away with any players that I really, really, really like in this class. And Jamari Mayfield says DeMario's route tree is fire. Yeah, he's a good route runner. I definitely see what they like about him for sure. And he's that classic slot twitchy receiver, which we do need, by the way. So one of those guys, here's the thing that I don't want everybody to get crazy about, though. There's some people on Twitter that are like, both these guys are going to be impact players. No, one of them's going to make the team. One of them's going to be on the practice squad. That's how it's going to be, okay? Don't go crazy. But the Saints, Brian Brzee was a very risky pick. Very risky. Has upside. Another guy that was like Boutte, right? Who last year, like before the year started, high first round pick. Top 10 pick. Then he falls because of all the medical and injury history things. And then, even like health-wise, hasn't been great. So maybe he gets back to form. But in the first round, that's way too risky for me. And I've seen the Patriots pick guys like that, Dominique Easley, right? Total bust. Like you saw it right away. So that's what worries me. Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame's more of a ready guy, like had a ton of sacks at Notre Dame. I like that pick. Keandre Miller, I like Keandre Miller. But I don't think they needed a running back. I don't really think they needed a running back. They signed Jamal Williams. They have Alvin Kamara. And as long as Alvin Kamara is at least decently healthy and out of trouble, he'll be the legit starter and Jamal will be the 2. And really Miller's struggling to get on the field. So when I look at this draft, I don't really love what they did. A.T. Perry was maybe a steal in the 6th round. But I felt like the Saints had a weak draft and a very risky first round. So I'm going to give them like a C, man. I don't like what they did. I'm just going to be honest. Like maybe you could argue C+, B-, but I don't see anything coming out of this draft. Maybe I could be wrong, but I don't see anything coming out of this draft where they got significant players. I really don't. The Giants are the opposite for me. The Giants were in a similar range of the draft, but I think they nailed their picks. Deonte Banks was a top 10 player on my board. And he went 25th. I would have been happy with Deonte Banks at 17 if I was the Patriots, right? That's the type of player that I really like. He's a good press man cover corner with excellent athleticism, phenomenal speed, good press coverage ability, great feistiness, aggressiveness, good tackler. Deonte Banks is a very good player, and I think he's going to be good for the Giants. And he'll probably secure a number 2 spot for this year and maybe be the number 1 in the future. And you got John Michael Schmitz, who I thought was the best center in the draft. You needed a center. You needed an interior offensive line. Then you got Jalen Hyatt, who I'm not that big of a fan of. Like, yeah, he runs really fast in a straight line, but I don't see much else. But he does have home run potential, and he does have a lot of upside. So I can't hate it in the 3rd round. Eric Gray, whatever, backup running back. Trey Hawkins, another corner, which you did need depth at corner. Then defensive tackle and safety. Fine. So maybe you would have liked more picks if you were the Giants, but I think the picks that they had, I think they did well. So New York, I give them an A-, B+. And then after that, you got the Jets. The Jets are one of those teams that I didn't like because of circumstances. Not because of the players, but because of circumstance, right? Megan, by the way, in the chat, shout out to Megan. Thanks for the comment. Says Texans had 2 first-round picks. Next year's trade, 1 for Will Anderson. Still have 1 left. You're tripping on the Texans, A+. Megan, I disagree because go back to my Texans conversation. I went on for like 5 minutes. But 1, I'm not the biggest Will Anderson fan. 2, next year's draft is better than this year's draft. And I think the Texans will have a good pick next year. So if you're telling me that the Texans would have had the opportunity next year to get one of those top 2 quarterbacks or Marvin Harrison Jr., that is a bad F trade. F. Not just a C. F. Okay? I'm just being honest with you. But I like CJ Stroud. I like their second and third round picks. So I couldn't put it too low. But this is just my opinion, right? Everyone has a different opinion, okay? The Jets. I think the Jets had a bad circumstantial draft. I think I like Will McDonald a lot more than other people. Will McDonald was my third favorite edge rusher in this class. Will McDonald has more pass rushing upside than Will Anderson, in my opinion. Yes, I said it. See, now do you know why I don't like the Texans trade? Okay? Will McDonald, to me, has Matthew Judon traits, right? Super long arms, great bend, can get around the corner, and he played inside in college. But if you just watch the edge position, so he has the power, the length, and the bend. That is what I value at edge. I don't value, oh, this guy has 5 different moves and he was great on stunts. Yeah, that's the thing, Megan. I don't like Will Anderson. So that's why I don't like the trade, okay? Like Will McDonald, I love Will McDonald, okay? But I don't like this pick for the Jets there because they needed a tackle. They're going for the Super Bowl. The Jets needed a tackle and they got sniped by Broderick Jones and the Steelers. They got sniped, partly because of Bill Belichick trickery. But, like, the Jets are in the Super Bowl window. They needed a tackle and they didn't get a tackle until the 4th round. That is what I hate about it. And Joe Tippmann was their 2nd round pick. I don't think he's going to play this year. So this is a draft that doesn't really help them now when you've just got Aaron Rodgers, who you don't know if he's going to play 2 seasons. So I've got Will McDonald and the Jets at, this is the tough thing. I like the players. I like Abanaconda, to be very positive here about the Jets. I love Abanaconda out of Pittsburgh. I almost made a video about him. I liked him that much. So, and Zach Kuntz in the 7th round was a nice value. So I'm going to put them in the C+ just because of, I like the players, but I don't like the urgency. That's what I don't like. The Eagles are next. Gronk spike the like button, guys, if you haven't already. Comment and subscribe if you haven't. A lot more NFL content. We got the schedule released next week. It's going to be great. And I'm going to be making a lot of videos about that. I'm going to be doing every record prediction for every team. And Texans fans are going to be really mad at me, but they're also going to love me at the end of the day because I told you CJ Stroud was going to be good. Okay? Then we got Jalen Carter. 1st round, 9th pick. Could be a steal, to say the least. Jalen Carter, if there are like 3 or 4 players in this class that have Hall of Fame potential, Jalen Carter is one of them. Right? I think there's 4 or 5 players in this class that have Hall of Fame potential. And one of them is Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter went 9th overall. But there's also risk. Because off the field is a real thing. And one of the things I will say, everyone is bringing up the fact that Jalen Carter is surrounded by his Georgia boys, right? His Georgia guys, his buddies, his best buddies. But I will remind you that he was supported by all of those guys at Georgia where he got in trouble. Okay, just saying. All right, Ultra? Just saying. Then we got Nolan Smith, the Bulldog, at number 31. I think Nolan Smith is one of those players in this class that could be a home run, but it was dependent on situation and it was dependent on what team and scheme does he play in. Because I think there are concerns about his size and if his strength can hold up in the NFL setting the edge. But given the fact that the Eagles have been successful with Hassan Reddick, that makes me comfortable about Nolan Smith at number 31. And I do think he was a value based on, a lot of people. I thought the NFL maybe undervalued him, but I think a lot of people like me had him in the top 20. So Tyler Steen, good pick. I think he could be a long-term starter at guard on this team. Sidney Brown, I think could be a long-term starter at safety. Love the way he plays. He plays with a chip. Really good athlete. I think he actually makes them a lot faster in the back end, which is something they needed. Kelly Ringo makes them faster in the back end. Got great size. I think he'll actually be a safety in the NFL. And Tanner McKee and a couple other players. So I think the Eagles had an A. It is, I think, a lot riskier than people think. It's a lot riskier because I think there is risk with Carter. There is risk with Smith. But I do like the picks. There is even risk with Ringo, but not as much because of obviously where he was drafted. But the Georgia players do have a lot of questions about them, despite them getting all of these acclaim, right? So Eagles, I'm going to give them an A. But I don't think it's as obvious as everyone makes it seem to be because there is risk. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are next. Steelers also had one of my favorite drafts in this year's class. I'm going to give them an A. Broderick Jones addresses a need. He's got huge potential, doesn't have off-the-field concerns, and is an absolute stud with huge physical upside. Joey Porter Jr., huge physical upside, fast, big, long, lineage, right, with his dad. Usually I like those type of players. Like I was in love with Antoine Winfield Jr., like my man crush of that year in the draft. Joey Porter Jr., I wasn't as high on. I definitely saw him as more of a second round pick, which is where he ended up going, than a first round pick. But I think he is a example like Nolan Smith of a scheme specific player. Like if he would have went to a different team, I think I may have been a little bit down on him. But given the fact he went to Pittsburgh in a system that I think fits his skill set well, I think he'll be a good player there. Benton is a great fit for Pittsburgh at nose tackle. I think he's going to immediately make an impact as a starter there. Darnell Washington at least is a good number 2 tight end. Nick Herbig, fell in the draft. They pick him up. Corey Trice, Spencer Anderson. Good draft. Very good draft. San Francisco. Where's San Francisco? Am I drunk or is Seattle... Why is Seattle ahead of San Francisco? Am I drunk? Anyways, the Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to go with an A+. If I could give an A+, I would give them an A+. Okay? But Devin Witherspoon, impactful player right away. Great player. I think he's going to be a stud. Devin Witherspoon is an example of a player that has a high floor because of his off-the-field traits. High floor. Mentality of a monster, right? Really good edge to his game. I love his aggression as a corner. He is a rare breed at the cornerback position. Play man-to-man coverage. Lock people up. You love to see it. But he also has a high ceiling. So I love that pick at number 5. Jackson Smith-Njigba, he is another good floor pick at number 20. At the very least, he's going to be a solid contributor at slot receiver. The high end, he's super productive, 190 catches a year type of player. That's how good he can be at number 20. So you get 2 impactful players right now. And again, guys, context, right? The Seahawks want to compete right now, tomorrow, like the Detroit Lions. Seattle got 2 players that can impact them today, but also are at really important positions. So that's what I love about it. Then Derek Hall has a lot of upside as a pass rusher out of Auburn. Really quick, fits their system really well. Zach Charbonnet, didn't like this pick, not going to lie. Not that high on Charbonnet, definitely not a second round pick in my opinion, but he's a backup running back. Can do everything fairly well. Then they get Bradford, who's a guard. I think he might even compete for a spot this year, but long term he could be a starter in the NFL. Cameron Young at D tackle, Mike Morris at DN. Solid draft, man. All the way around, Seahawks had maybe my favorite draft of anybody. Then you got San Francisco. San Francisco, C. Okay? I usually love San Francisco's drafts, and probably where I'm going to regret saying a C is they probably stole like Braden Willis or D. Winters or Ronnie Bell or Jalen Graham. One of these guys that they picked in the 6th, 7th round, they're probably going to be a stud, and I didn't see it coming. That's just how the Niners work. But I like the Jair Brown pick. And by the way, this is a team that didn't have a first-round pick, didn't have a second-round pick. They had 3 thirds. Now, Jake Moody, I think a lot of people criticize them. From what I hear, and I don't study kickers in the draft, guys, sorry. From what I hear, this guy might be like the next Justin Tucker. And if he's that, this is a good draft. But I don't like the tight end pick that much. And I like the safety pick, but I don't know. I think they could have went offensive line with one of their premier picks that they had, and they didn't. They didn't even pick an offensive lineman. I think they could have went corner, maybe a little bit more high priority. They didn't go with corner. I just slightly disagree with what their priority was in the draft, if that makes sense. So the Niners are a C. I don't know how many players are going to come away with here that are super great. But you always give them the benefit of the doubt because they're probably the best drafting team in the NFL right now. And then you got Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, this is tough. I really like their draft. I don't know if they got an A just because, unless Kalijah Kancey really is the next Aaron Donald or Geno Atkins, then maybe it's an A. But Cody Mock's a guard, and Kalijah Kancey is an interior defensive lineman. So I'm going to give them an A-. I think they're right in that category. I really like their picks, but I don't know how franchise changing they're going to be, if that makes sense. I think Kancey makes an impact right away and is a long-term player for them. Cody Mock, I think, is a very solid guard in the NFL. Diaby's got some upside at pass rusher. Dennis has got some upside at linebacker. I really like Durham at tight end. So I liked a lot of their picks, but I don't know how much upside this draft has. And then you got the Tennessee Titans. I think the Titans have the potential with this draft to hit a home run. But it also could fall flat. I think Skoronski is a very good floor pick. I think he's going to be a very good guard in the NFL, and he's going to contribute a ton right away. Will Levis is a long-term upside pick. If he is their franchise quarterback, this is a great draft for them. I slightly lean towards he's not going to be, but hey, in the second round, he carries as much risk as Anthony Richardson. He doesn't quite have the upside. I thought a lot of people thought he was going to go in the first round. I think Will Levis and the Titans, I'm going to say I really like Tajay Spears. I like Wiley out of Cincinnati. I think they got a B for me. And then the Washington Commanders, this one's tough because I think Forbes is a good football player, but very much an outlier. I would have preferred Christian Gonzalez at this pick. Jartavius Martin was one of my favorite picks of the second round. One of my favorite safeties in the class. Ricky Stormberg, one of the best centers in the class. They went with offensive line back-to-back in the 3rd and 4th. I think this is a C+ type of draft for me because they addressed needs. I just disagree with their first pick, really. So it's a C+, maybe a B. Yeah, it's between there. Maybe a B. I'm going to give them a B. Okay, so that's where I land on Washington. And yeah, that's what I think overall of every team in the NFL and their grades. Now, I don't even know if I'm going to rank it here. I mean, it's really tough to rank. But if I had to rank it at the top, I would go Seahawks. I'd go Eagles. I'd go Steelers, Raiders, Cardinals. And that would be my top. And then, yeah, I'm just going to leave the rest because they're all kind of similar. So, there it is, guys. There it is. My thoughts on your favorite team's draft. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Gronk spike the like button if you did. Subscribe for more NFL. And let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. It's Mitch. Thanks so much for tuning in live. We'll see you soon. Peace.